Well, how's it going, folks? It's Double Header with Amir Keenan. And folks, time to turn our pillow to the cool side. We got a special guest, Alex Thomas, joining us on this episode. Booyah! Let me get the PowerPoint up. First, we got to introduce our guest, Alex Thomas. How you doing today, man?
Doing all right, fellas. How about yourself?
Doing all right. Doing good.
I'm doing pretty well. Happy to be here.
Yeah, hopefully you guys haven't been snowed in too much. I saw some of the, I believe, half-inch to 1 inches of snow and ice that you guys got in Charlotte. And being a native Charlotte area native, I know that could be very disastrous for the region. So hopefully you guys packed plenty of bread and milk as you hurried on out back into the real world following the Friday snowstorms.
Yeah, we didn't get much snow. By not even close to an inch on my end. But yeah, it's been pretty cold. My basically my garage is basically like a freezer because
Oh yeah.
of the low temperatures. But yeah, it's been cold. So let's just say that much.
Yeah, well, I got to experience what it's like to work in a grocery store and lead up to a snow. We're about to get snow here, and well, we don't get like say we get up in Buffalo or Pittsburgh. It's people are stocking up on bread and soup, chicken broth, what have you. And of course, Friday comes, it snows, and the next morning, most of it's already gone.
I mean, here in DC, where I live right now, we got 6, 7, 8 inches, depending on where you live. But much like the folks down in Charlotte, when I went to the grocery store pre-snowstorm last week, there was a lot of empty shelves in the milk and bread departments. And, bad habits die hard, as I say.
Unfortunately, and we were getting a lot of dairy orders. Pilots are like 20 plus, and it doesn't help our freight elevator doesn't. One of them doesn't work.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny is the Chick-fil-A that I worked at. They decided to close a little bit early on. I think it was Friday. They closed a little bit earlier than normal. So, but I thought it was the right call because there was going to be some ice on the roads where I am. But yeah, so,
They shut down a lot of places last Monday when we had our big snowfall here in DC, but Congress had to certify the elections, so I had to be there to watch them certify that. So Congress still had to come up, show up, and do their job. But like I said, a lot of places in the DC area closed down. People hunkered down inside, trying to do their best to stay off the roads and stay safe, stay warm, most importantly.
Yeah. Yeah. But anywho, now we got the weather out of the way. We got to touch on our man, the legend. Well, two legends in this episode, Stuart Scott and Kobe Bryant, and they know a thing or two about reporting on the weather and all that stuff, or calling games. And well, he knows calling games that took place in England weather. I mean, Stuart Scott, and also saying cool because how it says, turn that pillow over to the cool side, folks.
yeah. George Scott, one of the most iconic sports anchors you could ever have on the ESPN network. Gave those highlights out like it was no tomorrow. Did what he had to do. Did it his way.
And it's interesting because he came at a time where really SportsCenter was becoming its own big thing. Because SportsCenter has always been a news program, but in the 90s, I mean, that's when it became the brand SportsCenter. And Stuart Scott, along with a lot of other folks, really helped make that program what we now see it as today, with established anchors, established personalities. But Stu was really at the forefront of blending both the entertaining side of delivering news as well as the journalistic side of delivering the news.
Definitely, and not just ESPN, NFL Network, MLB, and even some of the local stations here. But he changed the landscape of sportscasting.
Absolutely. I think that when I went back last night and I saw his commencement address from May of 2001 at his alma mater, the University of North Carolina, who beat NC State in men's basketball over the weekend, one thing he preached about was authenticity. And he was as authentic in the desk as he was on the street. And that's something they teach you about in journalism school, but it's hard to take those lessons and put them into practice because you want to make sure you're hitting the right notes, make sure you're addressing your audience in a certain way. But Stewart was as authentic as it could be. And I think when you saw him in that commencement address or at the sports desk or doing a report, that was the same Stuart Scott that you're going to see walking down the street wherever you may be, whether that's Bristol, Connecticut, or anywhere across the country or world.
Definitely. And since having said all that, we're going to start off with the beginnings, where he grew up and everything. And want to take a guess from where he was born and where he grew up.
I knew he grew up in Winston-Salem, but I don't know if he was born in Winston-Salem.
Yeah, I knew that as well. John, we're pretty much in the same boat, Alex, for sure.
I'll give you a hint. He was born in the same city where Michael Jordan made it big.
Wilmington?
No, think
or Chicago.
Chicago. Yeah, so Stewart came from Chicago, was born in Chicago, but then moved to Winston-Salem when he was 7 years old. He also had three siblings, two sisters named Susan and Cynthia, and a brother named Stephen, parents O'Ray and Jacqueline Scott. And also he played football in high school and also was part of their track team and their vice president of student council.
Wow.
Student council or vice president of student council.
Still, I mean, if you ever been involved in student council in high school, you know those races are hard. I went in student council and lost 4 straight races for an executive office. So I just became an officer, kind of a class rep. So that's a pretty big deal to be a vice president.
Yeah, and that's something I didn't know until I read about that. I'm like, oh, that's pretty neat. And also, I didn't know he played football, which is going to play a big factor in this episode because it's a football-based podcast. But yeah, Winston-Salem. He went to first he went to Mount Tabor High School, and then transferred to Richard J. Reynolds High School in 1981, where he graduated in 1983. And he's part of the Hall of Fame class of 2015. Took place posthumously, but it made quite the impact at our Richard J. Reynolds High School.
That's the interesting fact, sure. Where he grew up and what he decided to do. That's interesting.
Definitely.
No surprise that it's R.J. Reynolds High School in Winston-Salem, if you know the history of Winston-Salem, of course.
I don't know much about Winston-Salem. Of course, Stu grew up there, and it's part of North Carolina. But I know R.J. Reynolds has some impact in that state, given that a school named after him.
Yeah, R.J. Reynolds may best be known for some of their tobacco products. Let me put it like that. Their cigarettes and other kind of similar products that they put on shelves.
Yeah.
That you need a card to go get. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, since we're talking about Tobacco Road, well, we all know where he's best known for. Going to this school right here, UNC Chapel Hill. Oh yeah, go Heels. He's class of '87.
My mom graduated in '83. Yeah.
83.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but Keenan, you were saying something. So I hated to interrupt you. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's fine. Funny that how all 3 of us are UNC Chapel Hill fans, and I remember quick little story here. I think it was 2008. I was in 5th grade, and I think my brother went to a few basketball camps, Sunday basketball camps at Providence Day, and he met all these basketball players from Chapel Hill, Raymond Felton, Brandon Haywood, just to name a few. And for me personally, that's how I became a fan of the team, because I met a couple of those players where my brother played at the basketball camp and stuff like that. I met Sean May, Brandon Hayward, Marvin Williams later on, just to name a few more. But yeah, that's how I became a fan of the wonderful UNC Tar Heels.
My mom brainwashed me into being Tar Heels. So I'm the youngest of 3. I have an older sister who's the oldest, an older brother who's about 17 months apart, and then myself. And my dad grew up in Georgia, went to Georgia Southern, doesn't have a dog in the hunt. But when my family was growing up, my mom really emphasized going to Tar Heel games that were in the Charlotte area. So when they went to do basketball games in the early parts of the season, or even bowl games, I think I went to one Meineke Car Care Bowl where Carolina lost to Boston College, who was not in the ACC at the time. But at the same time, my mom really emphasized, hey, like, I want my kids to enjoy North Carolina, be a part of this community, and eventually be a Tar Heel. And for one out of those three kids, it worked out. My other two siblings went to NC State, but I went to Carolina just like my mom did and graduated in 2016. So, almost 3 decades after Stu graduated. So, being a Tar Heel is very important to me. I walk around the U.S. Capitol all the time and I see people who went to Carolina. I used to have a lanyard that had Tar Heels all the way down it. And they would see the lanyard and said, hey, man, what year did you graduate? Where'd you go to school? Like, what school or program were you a part of? Trying to get to understand, like, hey, like, you're a North Carolinian as well, but you're also a Tar Heel. And really try to build those connections that in a place that is a big epicenter for activity, finding those connections is difficult. So being a Tar Heel has actually been rewarding during my time up here in the nation's capital.
Definitely.
Yeah,
And as for
yeah.
me,
Go ahead.
yeah, when I became a Tar Heel fan in 2008, and I was starting in the sports with the Panthers, the Bobcats, now Hornets, and then later on the Colts came down the road. But when it came to college sports, it was between in Carolina, it was UNC, Duke, NC State, and I chose the right team, UNC Chapel Hill. I know they made to the Final Four that year. It fell short against Bruins' former team, Kansas, but then they, right the ship the following year and won the national championship against Michigan the following year, and then of course 8 years later they did it again against Gonzaga, and they were watching that live, and just been, of course, I UNC Charlotte alumnus, but I still support Chapel Hill as well, because again, I know someone went there, got to root. Two of us root for Chapel Hill, and heck, I even been to a few games. In fact, they won both of them, both one Charlotte and then against South Carolina, and on campus at UNC Chapel Hill in 2015 against the final alumni. And it was very experienced for anyone who ever goes to Chapel Hill football games. It's one you will never. It's a once in a lifetime experience if you ever do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was a. I'm glad I let you speak, Amir, because that was my next point with that 2009 championship team with Hansbrough and Danny Green and those guys. That's where I fell in love with UNC basketball. That team was outstanding. Uh, Great moments, and like you said, we got to see them win in 2017, and stuff like brought back that wave of nostalgia, if you will. So that was pretty cool.
Definitely. And also, since we're so to football, what did you know Stuart Scott actually played for the Tar Heels football team, splitting his time as a let me see if I have it here, wide receiver and defensive back.
I didn't know that.
That's interesting.
Yeah, he was a pretty buff guy. I mean, he played either basketball or football, and so yeah. And when I found out, I was like, I did not know that either. So it's like, figuring, we're talking about football, and like, hey, he played football at UNC Chapel Hill.
Absolutely. He was a good looking dude. He took care of himself. Um, and there's a point, guys, when you're getting older and older where you kind of fall off on that. It definitely seemed like Stewart kept that regimen up, trying to make sure he took the best care of himself. And like I said, he looked great throughout his entire life.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Getting on with his other time at Chapel Hill, he also was a member of the, I'm not going to butcher his name, Nu Zeta chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, and you're familiar with this radio station, WXYC, Alex?
I had a few classmates of mine who were in the journalism school and were DJs on that radio station, student run radio station. So I'm pretty familiar with it from a name standpoint. At the same time, though, I didn't interact much with WXYC. So they're a good station, though, from the colleagues I had, and of course, from being at campus and seeing them on the campus be part of the community.
Okay. Well, he was a part of that radio station, and of course, part of student journalism. And last but not least, of course, he graduated in '87, bachelor's degree in speech communication, and he's in their journalism Hall of Fame in class of 2015.
Yeah, and being part of that Hall of Fame is, not just important because it's Hall of Fame, but it's important for journalists who are part of North Carolina in some way, shape, or form. People not just like Stuart Scott, but people like, Charles Kuralt and Edward R. Burrow, people who not just set the standard, but push that standard to its outermost limits, trying to create new guidelines, new boundaries, what truly set a new mission for what it means to be a journalist.
Definitely, yeah. Edward Murrow, I remember about him in one of the last classes I took at UNC Chapel Hill, and then mentioned Charles Kuralt. Was he CBS, if my memory serves right?
Yeah, he did CBS Sunday Morning and a segment called On the Road. So he would get this big RV that was souped up and go across the country and talk to people. One of the best examples of really of journalism that connects people to their country, because it wasn't a situation of him going to like Milwaukee, Wisconsin, or Charlotte, North Carolina, or a big city. I mean, he was going to these small towns, talking to folks who, took care of bikes for their neighborhood. Or the best example of a story that stuck with me from Charles's career that I saw as a student was he went to a place right across the North Carolina, South Carolina line that sold ginger ale. Now, when you think of ginger ale, you think of something like Canada Dry, but Blenheim's ginger ale has a big punch to it, and Charles Kuralt was not expecting it. So he takes his first sip, and he's just like overwhelmed with the emotion, like the taste and the strong ginger flavor. And the guy who's making the ginger ale goes, "Oh, by the way, this is the mild flavor." You can hear Kuralt, the surprise in his voice, going like, "This is the mild flavor? Like, what's the heavy flavor? What's the hot flavor?" But no, Charles Kuralt is one of the best journalists that ever really lived, one of the best broadcast journalists, and we're proud to call him a North Carolinian at that too.
Yeah,
Well,
definitely.
speaking of Canada Dry, naturally.
There we go.
Funny they bring that up, but it's just a can that me or my brother finished recently. But just thought
They do sell Blenheim's ginger ale, Keenan, at Harris Teeter, I believe. It comes in glass bottles, and this is not an ad for Blenheim's ginger ale. But at the same time, if you want to try something with a little bit more punch to it, you can actually get it in your neighborhood, most likely. So they started selling it in Charlotte the last few years. It has like kind of its own little section of like North Carolina, South Carolina brands. So next time you're carousing through Harris Teeter, make sure to keep your eyes open for glass bottles of Blenheim's ginger ale. It may not be the hottest version, but even the mild version will definitely kick you in the heart.
Yeah, this was bought at my local food line. Actually, not too far from me. So I think either my parents or was able to get this for me, and then I just tried this out actually yesterday, and I actually really like it. The fruit punch flavor.
Oh, really? Good.
Yeah, and for me, since I work at a grocery store, I see Canada Dry all the time, and it's amazing how many brands, and not just soda, or Canada Dry, but sodas they have, and it's just like, man, where they can come up with this stuff.
Do they sell Blenheim's ginger ale at your grocery store, Amir?
I think they do.
There's your excuse. Before you head off work one day, go by the ginger ale section, go get you some ginger ale.
Oh yeah. And Amir, you like the ginger ale. I know you do.
Yep, in fact, I bought some yesterday, the Publix brand. So it's funny how we brought ginger ale and all that stuff. And since you brought South Carolina, after Stu, graduated, he did some local TV. I'm not so familiar with this station, WPED and PDE, excuse me, in Florence, South Carolina.
I'm not familiar with that station, actually.
Neither
that
am I.
wasn't. Yeah, that's an ABC station he worked at for about a year. He was a weekend sports anchor and news reporter, and then went over to WRAL. I think you also remember what that one's. That's the North Carolina-based station.
That's in Raleigh. Big station, probably the biggest TV station in the Triangle is WRAL. And keep in mind, that station's gone through a tremendous amount of change in recent history. It was a CBS affiliate, now it's an NBC affiliate. And throughout that entire time, WRAL remained the top station in the market. So WRAL is a legacy name when it comes to broadcast journalism, especially in Southern broadcast journalism.
Definitely, and he mentioned that when he was there, was a CBS station, but now it's NBC. In fact, it was NBC beforehand, then CBS. Now it's back to NBC. But when he joined, it was at CBS One, and even see on the advertisement says "Hello CBS," and I had to put that in because it looks so retro, and I said it had to fit his time there. So just again, WRL is one of the major stations here in the Carolinas, and he was just happened to be a part of that station.
Yeah, and like I said, probably one of the most recognizable stations in North Carolina and one of the biggest broadcast journalism brands in the South, because it's been there for a long time as the top station in terms of viewership and retention. And they're not owned by a big national organization. They're owned by Capital Broadcasting, who also happens to own the Durham Bulls. So they're a big brand there in the Raleigh area, and of course the surrounding market too.
How about that? So, hey, and like I said, we learned a lot during research of this, or even during recording of an episode, and so I got to learn a little more about WRAL, and thanks someone who actually lived in that area.
Well, I mean, being at Carolina for 4 years and studying broadcast journalism, you kind of have to learn the marketplace a little bit in that area. In fact, one of my journalism courses in my senior year there, we spent half of a semester talking about that switch from WRAL as a CBS affiliate to WRAL as an NBC affiliate. And it actually worked out pretty well in their favor because CBS, in the year that they made the switch, they had the Super Bowl that year. And then in the winter, they had the Olympics, or the summer, they had the Olympics. So they were hyping up the Super Bowl, hyping up the Super Bowl, hyping up the Super Bowl, knowing it's the biggest event of the year, regardless of what station is going to host the Super Bowl in terms of national stations. And then with the biggest event of the summer being the Olympics, it was just the perfect time to make that switch.
Yeah, definitely. And then speaking of switches, he was there from 88 to 1990, and then, of course, 1990 goes to now another NBC affiliate, WESH in Orlando, Florida, worked as a sports reporter. And that's where things changed, because that's when he met a guy by the name of Gus Ramsey. He was, up and comer, working the ESPN, looking for people to help, put them on the map. And he said, this guy, this guy has got something special. And sure enough, he was right. We're talking series. I don't think we're with Gus Ramsey.
I think when we're talking about journalism, and I'll say this from kind of a personal experience, it's very easy to think, oh, Stuart Scott's this big ESPN personality, but that's just not how journalism works for a lot of people. You cut your teeth in those smaller markets, whether it's in South Carolina, whether it's in Raleigh, whether it's in Orlando, Florida, and then you make your big national presence. Journalists, we want to go to the big markets first. We want to go to DC. We want to go to New York. We want to go to LA. And that's just not how it works out for the good lot of us. A lot of us have to start small. My first journalism career outside of Carolina, when I ended up searching for a professional job at this point, because I didn't have one, was in Charleston, West Virginia. And it's about 5 hours away from Charlotte. Spent time there in Appalachia, there in the Kanawha Valley. And I had to cut my teeth a little bit. I thought I knew a lot about journalism, and it turns out I didn't know a lot about journalism. I learned how to reconnect to people, how to create content that gets people to understand why something matters, how to create content that is authentic and shows people, hey, we're in your neighborhood. We're talking about the issues you care about. We're connected to you. A lot of journalists do that. And a lot of journalists start in the small markets and go to bigger and better things. And Stuart's career path is a great example of that.
Definitely. When they were doing his, probably jumping ahead of it, but when they were doing his obituary or running through his highlights, he showed some of his early parts of his career. I'm like, well, I didn't know he did local TV and all that stuff. And I know there's not a lot of footage of him doing it, but when you see it, it's one of those oh, I know who that is. He worked at ESPN, but now he used to cover news in my neck of the woods, say again Orlando, Raleigh, and Florence, South Carolina.
Right, and go on, Keenan.
You good?
Yeah, No, no, go ahead. I'll get to my
Yeah.
point.
Okay. Like, right. And the thing is, Stewart gained all the skills that we saw on ESPN in those smaller markets. He became Stuart Scott not in Bristol, Connecticut, not working for the mothership there, but being a local news reporter, talking about local high school sports, talking to local people who are interested in things impacting their community day in, day out.
Yeah, yes. Mhm.
Yeah. So when I did, when I worked at the Wingate University for an internship, I got to interview uh, athletes from all different types of sports and what have you in an interview kind of setting. My point of the matter being was the was the type of questions I was supposed to ask them and stuff like that. Like, oh, how, what did you enjoy the season thus far? Like, what are your expectations going into blah 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 stuff like that. And with Stuart Scott, he would probably do stuff like that. Especially when he did the later on in the show, the NBA Finals, where he gets to interview, players after the game, after he won, after they won, excuse me, the ultimate game.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And also getting back to Gus Ramsey, you see in the background Dan Patrick Sewell broadcast or sports guy, excuse me, he's on running that department.
Oh, really? Good.
Mhm.
Dan Patrick's
Yeah.
another legacy name that, like Stuart Scott, had to cut his teeth a little bit before he became the Dan Patrick that we know who he is today.
Oh yeah. And speaking of, things, familiar names and sounds, we're familiar with this one. So we can hear it. Wait for it. Oh yeah, the ESPN theme. Or Sports Center
Da-na-na,
theme.
da-na-na.
Yep.
In terms of themes of TV programs and brands, that may be top two, top maybe the top most recognizable tune out there. I mean, there's a lot out there. NBC has their jingle as well that I was actually going to pick as number one, but man, it's hard to top that Sports Center theme of da 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 da. Everyone, if you make that sound, knows what you're talking about, knows the program you're referencing.
Definitely. And ABC's Monday Night Football. Or ESPN Monday Night Football as well. They have an iconic theme. And since
Da, da,
Julie
da,
Chaparral,
da, dun, 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 dun. Yeah,
yeah, there we
great
go.
theme.
And here I'm wearing the ESPN shirt too as well. And or like
Or
go with TV, Andy Griffith Show.
Absolutely. I'm not going to whistle, but I have been to Mount Airy, North Carolina once in my life. They have a good museum there for Andy Griffith if you have yet to go.
Oh yeah, and Chapel alumnus as well. So we
Yeah.
had to bring that up. So yeah, anyway, and getting back to his early days at ESPN, he was part of early sets with let's see here, with ESPN two, which was just launched in 1983. So he did some segments for Sports Match and Sports Night. And remember they never covered the Sports Night stuff on it. One of the segments they covered out he passed away, and then of course 4 years later, 1997, jumps to the big show with Sports Center with the likes of Dan Patrick and Rich Eisen, and of course we know him for his NBA coverage with the NBA Finals. He did that for 17 years. Of course, got interviewed guys like Kobe, MJ, Shaq, LeBron, and an interview with President Obama.
And like I said earlier, he came at a time where ESPN became the ESPN that a lot of us who are in our 20s and 30s that we see ESPN as. People like you said, Eisen, Dan Patrick, Keith Olbermann's another good example of people who took that brand of SportsCenter and ESPN and elevated it to a new place because they showed their personalities. In Stewart's case, he showed his authenticity, and it made that program much better than just a normal sports news program that told people about scores. Yes, SportsCenter still did that, but at the same time, allowing those personalities to be showcased a little bit, allowing the guys to flex their muscles and show their feathers a little bit more, made SportsCenter not just a better program, but like I said, something that a lot of us in our 20s and 30s recognize as just the top tier of sports programming.
Definitely.
Agreed. Think of Stan Barrett and Neil Everett as well, especially in the morning with Stuart Scott. They were able to do all sorts of things together during that program as well. With the top 10 plays and Stuart Scott did his own thing. When he had to. So a couple of more of those guys that turned ESPN into a massive showcase.
Hmm. Definitely, and also I know he also outside of like Sports Center, he did you familiar with this show, Stump the Schwab? Anyone familiar with that show?
I don't actually, but that's because I'm an old man, guys. I don't remember as much as I used to. Getting older by the day. So
Yeah, I just turned 47 a few months ago, so don't feel bad. But yeah, of course, Charles Schwab, who recently passed away, he was, expert in sports and everything. And Sue was like the host, like Al Trebek or Pat Sajak, who just retired. So you ask people like questions on sports, and they were like cheating, stump Charles Schwab, and for the most part, they couldn't do it. And I remember looking it up after Charles Schwab passed away, and it's like, man, it was one heck. It was a very good show. You didn't ever see it, but man, he hosted that show. He was on Cold Pizza. What was another show he did? He also hosted that. Here it is. Find it. He hosted a few other shows on here. All right, here we go. That's not it. Oh, here it is. Teammates and Dream Job. I didn't even know these shows existed either, so I looked up in the preference for his video and looking on Google Doc as well. So wondering why I was trying to search through it. And also, yeah, its own column, ESPN the magazine. Has anyone read the issue of ESPN the magazine?
it's been a while since I've seen a copy. I don't know if they still publish ESPN the magazine, but I remember reading ESPN the magazine when I was a teenager and into sports enough where I was like, oh, that's interesting. The Stanley Cup Finals are going on. I'd read it and they would have a profile of, someone like Sidney Crosby. Or maybe they'd have an issue that had like Dale Earnhardt Jr. And then, of course, being a big NASCAR guy, I'd be like, oh, Dale Earnhardt Jr. What's he talking about? Like, what's going on at Dale Earnhardt Incorporated? What's the skinny? What's the deal? So ESPN magazine was a great magazine and had a lot of great issues and a lot of great articles in it, and I really enjoyed it. I thought that for what it's worth, it was a great journalism read, and the people who wrote on it and helped make that magazine really did a good job in making something that was both informative and entertaining.
But definitely, he had his own column called Holla, so I was like, oh, how about that? Yeah, I actually picked up my first one last year, and I was like, sadly, they're no longer in print, but yeah, they had a lot of interesting stuff. And when I found out Stewart had his own column, like, I might want to read into that once if I can find it.
ESPN.com may have the archives for you. And if you can't, Internet Archive may actually have your archives. Internet Archive is one of the greatest tools we have out there for keeping track of websites, keeping track of old web pages, and also having a lot of Grateful Dead recordings. So if you're into the Dead like me, you have to spend a plenty amount of time on Internet Archive listening to old Dead shows.
Well, in my case, I found some old like Cartoon Network recordings of Dragon Ball Z and Teen Titans, but yeah, Internet Archive definitely has a lot of old stuff, like old internet sites and TV shows and recordings and all that stuff. So, and Grateful Dead, I'm somewhat familiar with them. Hoping that we're getting a lot off track, folks, but we're still keeping with the Stewart Scott theme, though.
Exactly. Do you want to make this a 5-hour show of me talking about the Grateful Dead? Absolutely not. We need to stay focused on our man Stewart.
The Grateful Dead, the one and only rock and roll band. I can go on about bands too, Alan.
I saw Dead Company last year at the Sphere, and it was just an absolute blast. But let's get back on track here and let's talk about the legend that is Stuart Scott.
Well, since you said that, what made Stewart legendary is, well, his catchphrases. And one that comes to mind, who is the other side of the pillow? And just call him Butter because he's on the roll. And then we remember those two.
Mm-hmm.
Of course,
yeah,
hear from the main legend. I'm sorry.
No, most definitely. I'm definitely familiar with that one. So without further ado, play the clip.
As cool as the other side of the pillow.
Man, I can just hear him say that all day. I'm not sure. Could you hear that?
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure. Yeah, and that was presented to him by one of the guys at the NJAB in 2014, a few weeks after he gave his iconic speech we're getting into. And also, there are a few other ones that he said I was not too familiar with. It's like, you ain't got to go home, but you got to get the heck up out of here. It's your world, kid. The rest of us still paying rent. Like, I honestly never even, I'm not familiar with these two, but I was familiar with the other two.
I mean, that's one of the greatest
Yeah.
parts of that era of sports journalism is, like I said, people putting their personalities on there. And you don't get that about having, a starched collar there telling you just the sports scores. Stuart Scott created those catchphrases, built those catchphrases up over years. And like you meant, the other side of the pillow, that's now just become really a large part of daily conversations. We don't hear it every day, but at the same time, a lot of people heard that from Stuart, and they put it in their own conversations and use it when they talk to their friends about sports, talk to other people about sports.
Yeah, and getting back to his early days in journalism, he used that phrase during his time at WPDE, and then of course far over to ESPN, and of course then that's when it really took off. So, but of course, we got to talk about the most iconic Stuart Scott catchphrase, and we all know it. I think we know which one it is. Starts with a B and ends with an H. Let's say it all
Booyah!
at once.
Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah.
Booyah!
On
Jump the gun
three.
there, man. It's okay.
1, 2, 3. Booyah!
Booyah!
We tried it.
That's fine.
But anyway, yep. And then, of course, say Booyah in Tar Heel colors in ESPN. And the man himself, Stu, you said it. It's your thing. Take it away, my man. Booyah! Booyah!
I mean, you don't need to say anything else. I mean, if someone makes a great three-pointer when he's pressured by guys or, makes a great shot into a goal, just booyah. You don't have to say more. People get it. Booyah.
Yep. And Scott Van Pelt said it itself, like, booyah. That's it. I mean, when you think of Stu, you think of that phrase.
You don't have to say anything else because it's just, it's like a yes or got him. It's booyah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And whenever I see a big play from the Panthers, I always send a text to you, Keenan. I said that deserves a booyah, and you know
Yeah.
exactly where he got it from.
Yeah, and that big play, even from the Hornets too, they get booyahs as well.
Yep. And they're not doing so hot this year, and neither are the Panthers, and even the Tar Heels are struggling of late. But
hey, we beat NC State on Saturday, Amir. We're riding on that
NC
high.
State, yes. They didn't. Yeah, they beat NC State. Yeah, but I know football-wise, Mac Brown, things didn't work out there, and now they have Belichick. I hope things work out there with him, and he doesn't leave for Vegas. But it's on there sort of another time. But other than that, when they make a big play, they deserve a booyah. And I would say Tar Heels beating NC State, that deserves a big booyah from us.
They had two great end of game plays yesterday. Carolina making the shot to get the 1-point lead, and then they blocked a stage shot at the very end to end the game. So, yep, especially that block shot, booyah.
Booyah! There we go. We gotta try this one more time. On 3, 1, 2, 3.
Booyah!
Booyah!
Yeah, we got it. Oh yeah, took a couple of attempts, but we got it. And then on a more serious note, when he started doing all this stuff, it was younger artists they got it. Doing that hip hop culture stuff, and the African American artists understood it, but older generations, not so much. And they even sent mail to ESPN to have him vote him off the show, and it was like, really, you gonna vote this guy off the show? Why?
mean, there is kind of this weird line in journalism between professionalism and being unprofessional. And Stewart acted most of the time professional. I can't think of a single instance where he was unprofessional. But people
Right.
just, if you're not fitting the status quo or what people think of when they think of proper sports journalism etiquette, they're going to oppose him. But of course, at the same time, we have to recognize that Stewart was, a black man. And being that, there are obviously different obstacles compared to his white colleagues. But Stewart, at the same time, handled that all with class and continued doing his thing. He didn't change who he was because he felt pressure. And he mentioned that in his commencement address that, he would get letters from folks, he would get complaints from folks. People told him, hey, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And he just stayed Stuart Scott throughout his entire life.
Exactly. And then ESPN stuck with them and said, hey, this is your style. Just keep doing it.
Yeah, just like I said in the very beginning of the slideshow, he didn't change who he was, and that's what made him special, man. That's what made him very special. And another thing too is that he did the commentary, the pregame commentary on NBA 2K5. He did the ESPN pregame show before the game would load up, and he would give facts about the game and highlights, and then he would say some sort of catchphrase right before the game started. I don't know, I can't remember any of the phrases that he said before like the game load up, but as a video game perspective, I do remember him doing stuff like that.
Hmm. I did not know that. I'm glad you
So
brought that up. That was a good one.
yeah, most definitely, and I'll show you a few examples later on in Amir, and same to you, Alex, if you want to see your.
Yeah, and before we move on to our next slide, I gotta go back one. But of course, I also gotta show one with Kim Kobe. 'Cause, he did because we're all going to touch him shortly. But I put this one here because he did a commercial with Kobe and Keyshawn Johnson back in 1996. I'm not sure you guys are familiar with that one.
I
Let me
actually
see.
have seen that commercial
Okay,
before.
right.
It's a great commercial. Yeah. I'm the man.
Wait,
What
I'm
up?
the man. Yeah,
I'm the
yeah.
man.
I now that you now that you say it, I think it's starting to come back to me a little bit.
Yeah, they did three. This was after Kobe and Keyshawn got drafted, and when I first discovered it, it was like kind of ironic, given how Kobe and Keyshawn's careers would turn out to be. They were brash, big names and big markets, New York and L.A., and then they're doing this commercial with Stewart and Kenny, and he's telling them they're cussing them out. I'm like, that's it's just as strange as it was an ironic commercial, but one that proved to be true. When what I've seen is now what would be like 2 decades after the fact, but when you see it in 1996, you're saying to yourself, "What's going?" And these guys got to work out doing abuse. Like, well, they learned from the best. And that one of the best commercials that those this is Sports Center commercials were funny, and he was a staple in all those. He still brought that same style to all the ones he did. The Chad Johnson one comes to mind. The one with Calvin Johnson, I'll show it to you. Well, him photo of him shortly. And I'm trying to think. There was one other one he did. It was with I can't think of it, but the one where he with Scott Van Pelt when they're about to go on stage. That was a good one.
The one I think about is he did one with Chris Paul after Chris Paul won Rookie of the Year.
Oh yeah,
And when you're a rookie, you go through certain ordeals and certain kind of different. I don't want to say hazing, but certain trials and tribulations of being a rookie. So things like picking up laundry, running errands, and here comes Chris Paul giving Stewart his dry cleaning, and
yeah.
Chris Paul's complaining like, "Man, I should be doing this. I'm Rookie of the Year." And Stewart says something like, "Yeah, Rookie of the Year," implying,
Mhm.
"Hey, guess what? You have to do this for an entire year, man, because you're not just a rookie. You're the Rookie of the Year until the next Rookie of the Year comes up." So that's one I think about when it comes to Stuart Scott.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I know it's when you talk about, and then this is the times with the New Orleans Hornets because at the time this is 2008, I believe it he came in the NBA.
2005. He was drafted. Came from Wake Forest. Uh, yeah, 2005. So this is his 20th season, believe it or not. So as of this recording, he's with the San Antonio Spurs at. Uh, I don't think he's 40 yet, but he's close, if not there.
Yeah, 'cause he's still in the NBA. It's just man, I did not 20 years, man. It's just 'cause I never most of the time with the Clippers and a little bit of time with the New Orleans Hornets.
Okay, so he'll be 40 years old come May 6th. So
Wow.
LeBron's already 40. I mean, the NBA is the young man's game, but at the same time, the older gentlemen are definitely holding their ground.
Oh yeah, and since we're talking about old man's game, Tom Brady he played to like 43 years old. So of course, Tua was best known for his NBA coverage, but he did use some countries with the NFL. So you remember Monday Night Countdown, NFL Primetime, the Blitz, and I don't know if you're familiar with. I know Monday Night Countdown 'cause we just mentioned the Monday Night theme.
yeah, but then Monday night countdown pregame show. You had Stuart Scott and like you said, Amir, that's a perfect segue.
Definitely, thank you. Yeah, he would do Monday Night Countdown, and of course, during the week he also do NBA coverage, and of course, this is where I like these right here. Stewart being Stu, doing the RG3 thing, and then posing with Calvin Johnson, and one of the best. It's like he's in his sports suit and everything. He's super doing showing off the mood, saying like ooh, that stuff. I love that one the best.
Yeah, he definitely had that swagger. He definitely had that swagger.
Uh, yeah, so Alex.
Oh no, I've nothing out. I think Keenan hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, yeah, and of course, you do have to touch on his cancer. So I have to behold this program from Dolphins Steelers 2007. That was the game he was going to cover that night, but he of course got sick with the cancer. That I will say he handled it with same way he did with doing sports broadcasting. He said, "I'm gonna fight it. I'm gonna beat it. It's not going to beat me." And also, he wanted to do it for his daughters as well. That was 2007. They were still young at the time, and then it's just because being of cancer, you think of the end result, but he didn't want it. Then he shifted that focus. It's like, let's not think of the end result. Let's still live life to the fullest.
Absolutely. And I don't know who said it, but it may have actually been Stuart. If they talk about people losing their battle to cancer. Well, that's just not how it should be. In a sense of people go about their lives and they continue doing what they're doing, making an impact while also getting treatment to cancer. And if they leave a big impact behind them when they do pass away, cancer doesn't win. The person won. People to this day still think highly of Stuart Scott because of the work he did for sports journalism and sports in America. And cancer can't take that away from anybody. They can't take that away from Stuart Scott. They can't take that away from his family. They can't take that away from ESPN. Stuart Scott lived his life to the fullest and was a winner of his time here on Earth.
Definitely. And also, before he moves to the next slide, I do know, not familiar with this, he had a lazy eye for the latter half of his career. Do y'all know how that came to be?
I believe he got hit in the head with a football. Is that right?
Yes. So he was trying to do a piece for the on the New York Jets for ESPN, and unfortunately, one of the footballs from the jug machine hit him in the eye, and he had a afterwards had to get surgery and had a lazy eye, not a glass eye, folks. It was lazy eye, and then you can see it in this picture right here. Well, barely, but he's with Peyton Manning and his daughter Taylor at the ESPYS. So yeah, he had that lazy eye for a while or for the rest of his career. But either way, he was. It just show you the character he was, the dedication he was. He thought he had a shot at making the Jets roster, and he wasn't going to let an eye injury stop him. And it didn't stop him from continuing to do Sports Center and his work at ESPN.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough situation because especially in broadcast journalism, your looks are everything. But if you go out there with confidence and you go out there being being authentic, people, you know, take that stuff and they put it to the side. It doesn't matter anymore.
Exactly. Moving to my last slide here. Here we go. The speech that we all familiar with. I'm not. Did you guys see this in real time? We gave it back in July of 2014.
I remember seeing it afterwards. I never got into the SB, so if there's a big moment, I usually will see it on X or see it on YouTube, whatever it may be. But it's truly a powerful speech and one that has, stood the test of time as being one of the great award ceremony speeches in entertainment and journalism in this country.
I would definitely.
Yeah, de- definitely. For me, I definitely saw this later on social media. When I got to see it, it was definitely breathtaking because I don't know. You just remember what he did, and you remember what stuff he did, and you remember seeing seeing him on television. And like we said, for the past hour or so, he's done stuff that nobody can do. Nobody can break. Nobody can nobody can obtain. Excuse
Definitely. And I saw that a day after it originally aired, because after they do the original broadcast, will re-air it on ESPN and their sister networks. And stood and watched the entire thing and said to myself, man, it's like, man, he went through a lot. He was in the hospital a week before that. He had overcome liver complications, kidney failure, and they didn't think he was going to make it there, but somehow, some way, he made it. And two things obviously stand out: the words you see here, but also this clip right here that I'll play right now.
Tomorrow all my boys are gonna be like, "Oh man, I saw you at the ESPYS with Peyton Manning, Money Mayweather, and KD." I'm gonna be like, "Yeah, whatever." Jack Bauer saved the world, and he introduced me.
I mean, what more can you say right there? I mean, he's still, we grew up in the hospital. He's still got that sense of humor in him.
And I like the fact that you have that quote from him up there too. That was the quote I was referencing. Obviously, I paraphrased it a fair bit, but at the same time, Stewart lived his life to the fullest. And that's what we all should strive to do. We all have X amount of time here on Earth. And you can sit back and, enjoy things, but at the same time, you should also be working on making an impact, making the world a better place, making the world different than how you left it, but different in a good way. And Stewart definitely did that with his sports journalism work.
Definitely. And go again.
Yeah, I was about to say definitely be happy of what you do. You know, no matter if it's journalism, dining room attendant, whatever, what have you. Be just be proud of what you can do. Be happy of what's the word? No, do what makes you happy is what I'm trying to say. Do what makes you happy.
Right. I mean, having money is nice, going on great trips is nice, but at the same time, how are you going to be remembered when all's said and done? Are you going to be remembered as someone who just had a lot of money, went on trips? Or are you going to be remembered as a good friend, a good father, a good journalist, a good scout leader, whatever it may be? That's more important than just, accumulating things, accumulating objects, and um, trying to just keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the good father part, because this picture right here, because I put it in this slide called "His Legacy." He said in his speech, it's his proudest moment of life was being the father, having two daughters, Taylor and Sydney, and of course, towards the end of that speech, he asked his daughter to come up on the stage, give him a hug, because he needed one, and that was a very touching moment in that speech. And he was he said himself, it's not a fight you can do alone. You need like a lot of support from his family, friends, workers at ESPN. Like they would call him up, seeing how he was doing, and all that stuff. And when he and I'll show you this right here. I'm sure y'all can see it all that well, but I did this. This is a. Can you see this real quick? So yeah, I did this. This is a Black History Month thing. We're gonna do like guys who historical figures, and I chose Stewart, and when I showed that speech for my presentation, a lot of people, some people, I remember Nick Patterson saying he made them cry. I'm like, man, I didn't know that. That's when I really knew that speech made its impact. But just and also our principal said, I commented on it, but just showed you. But really, the family parts, I think, I touched everybody. He was going through cancer. We know his impact on sports, but he also had a family to take care of, and he didn't want to leave them behind. And he said it. I'm on this age because of you guys, right? Because I got a lot to show you. We go through our moments, but also, we still love each other, and that's when he that it's why that speech, like you said, stood the test of time a decade later. And it brought up the everything why we know and love Stu for the man he is.
Absolutely.
And before I conclude, we're just gotta hear it from the man himself with the quote you see on the screen.
When you die, that does not mean that you lose to cancer. You beat cancer by how you live, why you live, and in the manner in which you live.
100%. I mean, what else can you say except 100%? Exactly.
Exactly. I mean, no other words. Sure.
Definitely. And here he is, and unfortunately, a few months later, he passed away on January the 4th. And do you guys know where you were when you first learned the news of his passing?
I believe I was leaving church because I come home for Christmas break because I was a student at Carolina at the time, and I believe I was leaving church that day, about to head back to school later that afternoon. So 2015, that spring semester was a rough one on campus, not just because Stuart Scott and his passing, but Dean Smith and his passing, and of course a tragedy involving some Carolina students as well. And it just seems that entire semester is just lost in a blur because of just the immense emotions that were felt on campus at the time, not just with the legacy of Stuart Scott, Dean Smith, but also the impact of some dear members of the Carolina community.
Definitely. Yeah, for me, I just watched the Colts Bengals playoff game, was getting some updates for the Dallas Lions game, and then I see on NFL Network or NFL.com that says Stuart Scott died at the age of 49. I'm like, when did this happen? It took place earlier that morning, as you can see by Rich Eisen's reaction right here. He announced it on the air, and then a few moments later, Hannah Storm did it, and they were very choked up about it. Because again, Rich worked doing ESPN, and same with Hannah Storm over the last decade. And the day before, they were here in Charlotte covering the Panthers Cardinals game, and Susie Colbert says, "I'm pulling in for Stu." And it became very poignant because we didn't know within between the after that game went final, which the Panthers won, before the next day of games happened on Sunday, that Stewart would have passed away.
Yeah, but I don't remember exactly where I was. I think I saw like an ESPN thing that he sadly passed away, and Amir, I do remember a couple of days later at school. I think you remember telling me more about Stuart Scott. I'm like, oh yeah. So it's very sad to hear that he passed away uh, during that time frame. But yeah, I mean, his legacy will be carried on forever and ever. And what he gets done is nothing but impact.
Definitely, 'cause it was built in the sporting world. Obviously, UNC Chapel Hill, they're holding up the sign saying Stu, and ESPN the night after he he passed. He left the next season in his honor. And I know a few weeks later they did a game between Chapel and Duke, which unfortunately Duke won, but they were on location there. I was like, they got to win this for Stu because ESPN's on the location. It's against Duke, but Duke unfortunately spoiled the party. And I know you came. We saw each other 2 days later. You, Alex, and I, and we talked about that game. It's like, how could that win that for Stu, and all that stuff. But either way, it was the tributes were, they were, well said, well thought, and even guys from like CBS and Fox, they gave their condolences as well, just to show you what a big impact he had on the sporting community.
Yeah, absolutely. Journalism as a whole, guys, is a tight-knit group. When I was in Charleston, West Virginia, as a radio reporter, I was friends with the TV reporters in that town, the newspaper folks in that town, and we worked alongside each other on different stories, talked to the same kind of folks. If one person had an issue, we gave each other feedback. Journalism is a tight-knit group. And just because we work for competing outlets doesn't mean we want the worst for each other. We want the best for each other, and we support each other. And what you saw after Stuart Scott died was an example of that, of people who worked alongside Stu, whether directly at ESPN or with another news organization, another TV station, whatever it may be. And they all had the same kind of respect for Stuart Scott as a professional, as a person, as a journalist.
Definitely. And just again, before we move on to Keenan's segment, leave you with these two images here with Stu. School is the other side of the pillow, and showing off that swag. I mean, that's again, when I think of him, he just brought that swagger to no matter where he was, whether it's at the SBs, giving that speech, or Sports Center, what have you. But of course, we know him best for this phrase right here. Let's try to do it one more time on 3. Hold on. Let's try it one more time. 1, 2, 3. Booyah!
Booyah! Oh, okay.
Let's try one more time. All right. 1, 2, 3. Booyah!
Booyah! The delay.
Oh, well, we
It's
tried
the delay.
Blame the internet, Keenan. Blame the internet.
Yeah, it's the internet.
Well, you know what? We gave it our best shot, but either way, Seward, you the man. Like we said, you're cool as the other side of the pillow. Hope you're watching proudly up there and saying booyah from heaven. We miss you, but your impact will live on forever, especially here in Charlotte and all across the sporting world. And also, speaking of impact, talk about another legend coming up, Mr. Kobe Bryant. So stay tuned, folks, because he also left lots of impact in sporting and NFL as well. So stay tuned, folks.
You're listening to Double Header. Be sure to like and subscribe. All right, folks, we are back with our second story. Kobe Bryant. We talked on the late Stuart Scott from ESPN, and now we're going to talk about the great Kobe Bean Bryant. So, folks, are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Let's go.
Well, with Kobe Bryant, famous basketball player, we all know. And in case if some of you guys are listening out there on Spotify or on YouTube land, who is Kobe Bryant? Kobe Bean Bryant, born on August 28, 1978, former NBA shooting guard with the Los Angeles Lakers, from 1996 to 2006, and he wore the numbers 8 and 24. Ranked 4th all time in NBA scoring as of today, as of January 12th, 2025, with 33,643 points. 5-time NBA champion. In the year 2000, 2001, 2002, 2010, and 2009, 2010, excuse me, an 18-time All-Star. So let's sit back, relax, and let's listen to a few moments with Kobe Bryant.
A 50-point game in his farewell. Bryant 4-3. Go! One last gamer. Bryant on the move with the jumper. He
Oh,
got it! 58 points! And the Lakers lead! 60. Nice rotation of Bryant. Buckle up for Kobe Bryant! Kobe Bryant just sucked the gravity out of the target center. What a play!
The windmill slam.
Long run out by Kobe Bryant. Behind the back. Oh! What did I just see? You just saw what Kobe does best, and that's bring people to their feet with a sensational play. Really got a dribble drive, change of direction by Bryant. Slam dunk. Woo! You talk about elevation. Chick, he went up to the rafters before he decided to put somebody on a poster. They'd love to get it into Nash's hands, and they do. Ball knocked away, stolen by Parker. Oh, there it is. Here comes George to Kobe Bryant. Bryant inside. It's good. It's good. Tie game. A 1-point game. Walton to tip it. Bryant with the save. Oh, you got to get a shot here. Final seconds. Bryant for the win. Bang! Kobe Bryant has hit a shot at the buzzer.
4 away from Nelson Baylor to make a record. For 3 again. Yes!
Well, there's 70.
Everybody wants.
so right out the gate, I mean, you heard a bunch of clips from that compilation. What comes to mind first and foremost? Alex, I'll start off with you.
For me, it's just the kind of player that he was. I only saw Kobe Bryant play once, and it was against the original OG Charlotte Hornets at the Charlotte Coliseum, not the OG Charlotte Coliseum. The OG Charlotte Coliseum still exists. It's just now Bojangles Arena, Bojangles Coliseum. But anyway, I mean, he was just on paper one of the greatest players of all time. To see him, and the skills that he brought to the table really showcased why those numbers ring true. So at the same time, though, I wish the Hornets, from a, again, playing standpoint, would have actually kept him when they drafted him when he first entered the NBA. But that Jerry West, he had his eyes set on Kobe and made a great move to get Kobe Bryant. And without Jerry West, the Lakers of the late 90s, early 2000s would not have been the Lakers that we see them at in the year 2025.
Yeah. Yeah, you brought up a good point where he got drafted by Charlotte, and then Kobe and Jerry, had those talks, and and the rest is history. And honestly, I'm not really that mad as a Hornets fan of how it turned out, because Kobe loved LA. He loved the Lakers, franchise, and wanted to do great things. And as a Hornets fan, I can't believe I'm saying this as of January 12th, 2025. I'm happy how it played out for sure. So Amir, your thoughts?
Yeah, and I never hearing about that. I think after he retired, I'm like, I know he played for the Hornets, but I got into sports back in 2008. Of course, Tar Heels were a big team. Of course, Panthers, the Patriots coming out that Super Bowl against the Giants. But then NBA, one name that always came up was Kobe Bryant. And, when he started out in sports, all the big names, big teams, he was part of that. And it just, of course, he was, I wouldn't say maybe the back half of his career at that point, but still putting up the numbers and just, he showed no signs of slowing down until a few years later with the Achilles injury, but he was still the top names at that time, him and LeBron and who's another one, and soon Kevin Durant and Kevin Garnett.
Dwayne Wade, to name another one who was an electrifying shooting guard. Ray Allen, 3-point specialist with Seattle, then in Boston, then Miami.
Yep. And I know I never seen kids wearing D Wade jerseys when I was growing up. It's basically, I don't ever see a lot of Kobe people wearing Kobe jerseys till like later on, but either way, he was still like one of the big names you would hear. So I know the Lakers made the finals that year in 2008.
There's a lot of probably Okafor Charlotte Bobcats jerseys at some Goodwill somewhere out there of just racks and racks of Okafor Bobcats jerseys when the Bobcats finally got into town. I remember seeing a lot of Okafor jerseys because he was, this big guy from UConn, was going to help the Bobcats rebuild basketball in Charlotte, and then here we are 2 decades later, and the Hornets are still a basketball team. That may be the nicest thing that someone could say about them.
No, you're right. Because I never seen a lot of Felton jerseys when I started getting into sports, and of course Brady, Manning, Smith jerseys, and Delhomme. Yeah,
Bill
Hornets
Wallace.
had a lot
Bill
of
Wallace.
projects, but they didn't really work out, unfortunately. What were you saying, Kenan?
Yeah, Gerald Wallace as well, because he was a Bobcat top star, and with along with Emeka Okafor in those Charlotte days. But back to Kobe, my original point, you know, if you want to go back to shooting guards, Michael Jordan, one of the greatest to ever do it.
Definitely.
I mean, I'm going to say he is the greatest to ever do it because I went to Carolina, so I'm biased in that regard. But I was talking to someone the other day, and it's hard to believe that Jordan may not even be the best basketball player who played at Carolina when you consider their collegiate career. But in terms of professional basketball, names like LeBron, Michael, Kobe, I mean, they stand above the rest.
Definitely. And yeah, it's crazy to think Kobe came about right when MJ and the Bulls had their three-peat, and then right before he ended, LeBron was now by that point and was about to win a championship with the Cavaliers. It just shows you how he was there for like his career crossed paths with two legends, and he got a chance to play against both of them at separate times.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it is kind of the bridge between the past and now where we are in the present, and of course going into the future, whoever that next big name will be. And Michael and Kobe, LeBron, and who else? Who's going to be that next person who's going to be at the mantle 10 years down the road and we say that was the biggest star at the time? I don't, there's a lot of buzz when LeBron came into the league. At the same time, though, you don't know the big stars until 3, 4, 5 years down the road, and then you go, oh, this is the next big thing. This is the person who is going to really be the figure for the NBA, be the figure for our sport.
Right.
Yeah,
create a legend before he even plays it down in that said sport. Because again, with Stu, like go back to him, think of ESPN, but he didn't start on ESPN. Kobe in LA, but he started with the Hornets, and then it didn't come overnight. But then as time went on, that's when they made their name for themselves. Where, like you said, 5, 10 years or a decade later, Kobe's one of the bigger names, not just NBA, but all sports as well.
Well, think about it too. He was at a time, and Keenan, I'm sure, can elaborate on this. I'm sure it's on one of his notes here. But he's one of those few exceptions of he went straight to the big leagues, and he made it big pretty quickly. You've grown up in Philadelphia playing high school ball, and then poof, next thing you know, he's the biggest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, Alex. He came straight out of high school, did his thing and put up numbers like was no tomorrow. I'm sure. I just don't have the numbers on me. But with that being said, with the Philadelphia, he turned out to be an Eagles fan after all. So he is from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He is an Eagles fan. He attended Lower Merion High School, which we all knew from 1992 to 1996, and that's him wearing an Eagles jersey in this picture right here.
Yeah, he loved his Eagles, and I know they brought that up in leaks leading up to the Super Bowl, and also after his passing. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves.
Philadelphia sports fans are a different breed, guys. I mean, they love their hometown teams, the Phillies, Flyers, Eagles. And, Charlotte kind of has this different kind of dilemma where, fans are into it, but at the same time, if things are going wrong, it's easy to be a little bit down. Philadelphia folks are diehard through and through. one of the best sports groups in terms of fandoms out there is Philadelphia. Diehard group.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Especially with the
definitely a
Eagles
die.
playing today. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're right, Amir. Especially with the Eagles playing today, as of this morning, sure. But yeah, definitely a diehard group. Um, I would say they definitely can be a little mean from time to time, but definitely cares about their city, cares about their teams, and they just want to win like everybody else.
At my old age, guys, I'm old enough to remember the OG Hornets when they played in Charlotte at the Coliseum. And it was a big deal because they were the first professional team to have, consistent footing in Charlotte. There have been a few teams here and there, but the Hornets were the first team to
Yes.
really be the team in Charlotte. And there's a reason the Hornets sold out, every game for so many years and had the highest attendance for so many years because people, gravitated around that. They gravitated around the cause. Hornets were good during a good number of years in the 90s. And, when they left in 2020 or 2002, that kind of ruined that momentum. The Panthers had their success in the Super Bowl, but they never could really pick up that torch. And now we're kind of in this weird place of, yeah, we have sports teams. They're good, but with people moving into Charlotte from different parts of the country, those teams are having a little bit more of a difficult time trying to protect their brands, enforce the local fandom, and build local support because, really the OG Hornets, when they left, all that momentum and all that energy just got sucked out of the area.
Yeah, and thinking about that at the time, the Panthers were in the midst of a playoff drought when they left. And then, of course, they hadn't had back-to-back winning seasons. And then we brought the Bobcats. It was, like I mentioned, with them, like Okafor, and then, what was the guy from Gonzaga?
Adam Morrison.
Morrison, there we go. And we think these guys are going to be the ones that put them over the top. And then 2 years later, they're out of the NBA. And it's like start all over again. And it's kind of the same with LaMelo Ball at this point. It's like, is he going to be that guy? And Bryce Young to an extent as well with Panthers. Whereas what you see with the Lakers or the Eagles, rich history, a lot of winning, a lot of playoff success, and a lot of momentum. When you can see a Lakers fan here in Charlotte, Philly, heck, Wyoming, and you know who that team is, where it's not like the Panthers or Orange. You wouldn't, not many people know who you're talking about unless you know a key player like Cam Newton or Steve Smith or Kemba Walker, just to name a few.
Or even someone like Jake Delhomme. If you want to know who probably had the best-selling jersey in the Charlotte area for a good number of years, it's Jake Delhomme. Came out of nowhere, came in during the first week game against the Jaguars in the 2003-2004 season, and ends up being the starting quarterback, leading the Cardiac Cats to their first Super Bowl appearance, and of course losing, but at the same time giving us something to build momentum on, especially like I said after the Hornets left and sucked a lot of energy outside of the Queen City.
Yeah. And look at the Lakers now. I mean, after Kobe left, they had some lean years, but then they brought LeBron, and then they were able to build that momentum back up. It's just that's one thing about sports, how momentum can just shift. It'd be good one year, and then it's like back to reality the next, or you just keep it going. And it's like for the Lakers, they're able to keep it going. Like say the Hornets, like they just can't seem to keep the ship, can't right the ship. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but with Kobe Bryant, speaking of Philadelphia, and Alex, with him being an Eagles fan, there's a certain team that made an impact, probably about 7.5 years, 7.5 years ago. So let's say the Philadelphia Eagles, 2017, 2018. Anybody?
Yeah, I've heard the Philadelphia Eagles are pretty good at football. I know that may be inside information no one's aware of, but I've heard they're pretty decent. But don't tell anyone. It's just between us.
Well, I would say when they're good, they're fun to watch. The Philadelphia Eagles, and 2017 was an example of that.
Yeah.
But nowadays, or going, Keenan.
No, I was going to get to I was going to get to this first bullet point here. So
Yeah, go ahead.
in 2016, the Eagles drafted Carson Wentz and hired Doug Peterson. They got off to a good start, going 3-0, but only their final 13, going 4 of their final 13, excuse me, finishing the season 7-9. So in the 2017 season, the Eagles were among the best, going 13-3, winning the NFC East, securing home field throughout the NFC playoffs. There you have the flip for the first bullet point.
Yeah, I remember that 2017 team, and they drafted Carson the year before that, and hired Doug Peterson. And when they released their schedule, I know they had like 2 Monday night games, 2 Sunday night games, and of course Thursday night game here in Charlotte. And I remember going to that game, and the Eagles fans, they were in full force, so they travel well. And they just I don't know about that team, but they made football fun because they can just make. They were scoring a lot. They were winning again, and they just Carson was coming in his own. Also, on Jeffrey, who was the other one? Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox. I just named the whole roster for all I care. But then they were just. It was at midseason. I said this is going to be the Super Bowl representative for the NFC, and sure enough, it. I was feeling confident about that. AFC, that's a whole nother story.
But going back to the Eagles from the season, the Wentz was an MVP caliber quarterback with 205 for 440 for 3,296 yards, 32 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and had a rating of 101.9. And before tearing his ACL in that season, the Eagles division clinching over the Rams, 43-45, or 45-43 on December 10th. Nick Foles finished the regular season going 2-1 as a starter. So Nick Foles was able to come in when Carson Wentz got hurt. In the playoffs, the Eagles were able to hold off Atlanta 15-10 in the divisional round before dominating the Falcons in the championship game 38-7 and getting to the first Super Bowl appearance in 13 years. Their opponent, as you can see, the New England Patriots.
Alex, you want to chime in?
I see where this is going. I want to see how the Philadelphia Eagles take on such powerhouse as future North Carolina football coach Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. But I see where this is going.
Yeah,
But go ahead.
it's funny bringing that up because right before we signed on, they just hired Mike Vrabel, who scored a touchdown against the Panthers in their Super Bowl and was part of those Patriot teams. So, and it's crazy to think that. Imagine telling Panther fans that the guy who beat you guys the Super Bowl will be coaching your football team, say 2 decades later.
Yeah.
Say, right.
Life's interesting that way. But Keenan, how did this Super Bowl end up going for the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, before we get into that, Kobe Bryant had a little message to the Philadelphia Eagles. So it was outside the Eagles practice facility, I believe, or outside his home. Kobe Bryant received a certain gift from the Philadelphia Eagles.
There you go. You never got one when you were a kid?
Huh?
You never got one when you were a
official
kid?
one like this.
So with that, Kobe Bryant was able to rock a customized Philadelphia Eagles jersey. How cool was that?
Very nice. I've always wanted to get one of those jerseys. Not Philadelphia Eagles, but a customized jersey.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And number 8, so they won with or his original number. Because the one we think of is 24, but he started with number 8 or early on in his career.
Yeah, I mean, both iconic numbers of the 8 and 24. But if I had to choose which number that represents Kobe Bryant the most, I would say number 24. What do you guys?
For me, growing up at time, post Jordan, where the NBA was still kind of riding that high of Jordan. I associate Kobe with the number 8. Seeing him, Phil Jackson, Shaq, part of that unit, and being the LA Lakers that I knew them to be, that's what I think of when I think of Kobe Bryant's number. I think of that number 8 in those years with Shaq, Phil Jackson, 3 straight championships.
Yeah, for me, when I got in sports 2008, I think of the number 24 when I think of Kobe. But then when I watch some of his old highlights, like I know he wore number 8. It's like, yeah, he made 2 jerseys iconic, just like Jordan with the 23 and the 45. And just, but I always think of number 24 and think of Kobe when it comes to iconic jerseys, or his jersey number rather.
Yeah, and I don't have this on my presentation, sadly, but I mean, there was a picture out there up in the Raptors of the 2 jersey numbers retired at the Los Angeles Lakers arena, which is crypto.com arena as of this point. It used to be Staples Center.
Yeah, I still associate with Staples Center, but at the same time, I'm old enough to be like, do they Panthers play at Ericsson Stadium? It hasn't been Ericsson Stadium in 2 decades.
No, I hear it. So I think it's where they play. I think it's Staples Center, and that's where the Clippers play as well. And hopefully they're doing. It's sad what's going on in LA right now with the wildfires. So we are thinking about you guys out there. So because Durant's getting that move to Glendale, but yeah, it's the Lakers. I mean, I always think of the Staples Center, but and obviously Kobe. So
Yeah, most definitely. So going back to the Kobe Bryant's message, he had a few words to say about how the Eagles should play going into future games.
I mean, there'll be a lot of hype, a lot of talk, especially going into the postseason. And you can't let that emotional roller coaster distract you.
So, Kobe said it best. You can't have that emotional distraction get you, as I'm paraphrasing that. So when you hear that, what comes to mind?
I think it's he's right on the money when it comes to it. When you're in a high pressure situation, whether it's a job interview, a championship game, whatever it may be, it's an emotional ordeal. It can take a lot out of you, but you have to put that aside in the moment and focus on the businesses at hand. You're trying to win the game. You're trying to win a game. You're trying to get a promotion. You're trying to do something good for your business. You're trying to do something good for your family. You can't let your emotions get the best of you, because if you do, that's what's going to cost you at the end of the day. You have to keep in mind, this is business. We have a task to do. We need to succeed at completing that task.
yeah, and again, it also with when they said they brought Kobe to that pep talk, I just knew like everyone's going to listen. He's not just a legend, a sports fan, but he knows what it's like to be in these high pressure situations. I mean, won 5 championships to back that up. And I do know that speech had an impact on the Eagles. Ireland never played in the Super Bowl prior to that.
Yeah, I mean, he has those championships for a reason, and he's been in these high pressure situations, and I don't know, he's been through a lot, especially with his Achilles that you brought up, Alex, because he shot those free throws on a broken Achilles, and then he had to leave the game. I think it was 2014 that happened. So, um, so back to a certain message where Kobe Bryant had this to say after a playoff victory.
Fly, Eagles, fly on the road to victory. EAGLES, Eagles.
So with that, he was all hype, and I, as a fan, I would be too.
Mhm. Oh yeah, it's hard to top someone with name recognition like that, backing your team, backing your guys. So hard to top somebody like Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, because when the Super Bowl comes around, you get a lot of the celebrity fans of the teams are in it, and of course, Kobe being from Philadelphia, he's going to represent the Eagles, and did so by saying the "Fly Eagles Fly," which they say after they score every touchdown, and he brought it there in that video we just saw. And he said it fly equals fly, EAGLS. And he knew that was when after hearing that, you say to yourself, the Eagles have to win the Super Bowl now, given that Kobe Bryant's on their side.
Yep, he's on their side indeed. So with that being said, sorry. So Super Bowl has come upon us. So the Super Bowl on February 4th, 2018, Patriots and Eagles facing off with quarterback Tom Brady. Philadelphia is looking for the first Super Bowl victory, and while New England is looking for the sixth championship. So, I mean, I'll stop right here. So, anyone can start. So, New England looking for their sixth, Philadelphia looking for their first. What do you think the expectations are going into the match?
Well, I think the expectations, especially at that time, whenever you saw Tom Brady, Bill Belichick in a high pressure situation, AFC Championship, Super Bowl, whatever it may be, was that they were going to execute and be successful. And they had a track record at the time. Like you said, Keenan, they had already won multiple Super Bowls at that point. They were in this dynasty, and it no longer was a situation of, oh, can they win a Super Bowl? Can they do this? No, it was a situation of who can beat these guys? Who can be better than the Belichick, Brady-led New England Patriots?
Yeah, because they were the year before they pulled off what thought to be the impossible with that 28-3 comeback against the Falcons, and just feel like, okay, the Patriots can get it done, but other teams, they got question marks, and sure enough, here we are again. They're in the Super Bowl, and then here comes this Eagles team that's 13-3, had a quarterback that got injured, and they brought a quarterback who's kind of had a German career. How are they going to measure up against this Patriots dynasty or team rather? And I said, hey, I was feeling like the Eagles, I think they can pull this off, but it's probably because I just didn't want to see the Patriots win the Super Bowl at this point. But that being said, it's like as long as they don't do what say Atlanta did, the Eagles will be fine, or can pull this off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. So backup quarterback Nick Foles is at the helm with Carson Wentz out. So let's fast forward a little bit. So one of the highlights of the game that took place was a trick play on a red zone drive in the second quarter before the half. So with that, we'll have Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth, or actually the this is an audio clip of the discussion of the Eagles with Carson Wentz and or excuse me, Nick Foles and Eagles coaching.
You want Philly food?
Yeah, let's do it.
Philly special. Ready? Here we go. Tonight! Easy! Kill! Lane! Let's go! Let's go, baby! You like that? I'm still in it right there. Awesome! Baby. Next two.
Everything today.
Let's go, B-Joe.
Catch him and throw him.
Got more catches than Tom does.
There, I'll take it. Did a little acting right there. It worked. I'm waiting for that one. Let's go. Let's keep it rolling, baby.
Great throw by Trey.
Oh, great throw. Trey, go. Hey.
So that's pretty cool how they drew up that play. You can't see it, but I mean, for my sake, it was called for my sake when I saw that, it was something that I barely even recognized or even seen, and it was actually called the Philly Special, and you can't draw it up any better than that.
Perfect trickery.
Yeah, and it's utilizing all the skill players there with the former tight end used to be a quarterback, and then they had to practice play in ballroom so the cameras wouldn't pick it up. Spygate and everything, and then come Super Bowl Sunday, they're like, "Want to run it now?" And like, Yep, and worked to perfection. And when we think of that Super Bowl, we think of that play right there.
Yep, Nick Foles, getting the ball in the end zone rather than the receiver or running back. So that's something that you don't really see.
Mhm.
So with that, Tom Brady was looking to get things going throughout the contest and go toe to toe with Nick Foles. And fast forward a little bit, in the fourth quarter late, New England had to march all the way down the field with about a minute to go in the final drive. It was all or not for New England, and now here's Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth for NBC on the final play.
Brady under pressure, escapes the sack, launching one for the end zone. It's a jump ball and it's incomplete. And Gronk was there. And time runs out.
This is the end of the game.
And for the Philadelphia Eagles, the long drought is over. Finally.
So the long dry spell is going to end for Philadelphia. They are champions, and they get it done, and they beat the odds for sure.
Yeah, and whenever you're in a situation where your team's in a drought, whether it's Philadelphia Eagles or whether it's, right now the Carolina Hurricanes, which are now going on 2 decades since they won the Stanley Cup, or if you're the Panthers or Hornets who have not quite had the chance to hold a trophy. Well, Panthers have 2 Super Bowls, but yeah, the Panthers have seen better days too. Being in that situation to finally get that Super Bowl, it throws a lot of pressure off your back because you're tired of every season being like, this can be our year. And then by week 3, you're just filled with incredible doubt. I mean, the Eagles weren't even the best team that year on paper, but they played the right way at the right time, and they gifted the city of Philadelphia a Super Bowl trophy, a Lombardi trophy.
Yeah, because they went their last championship was back in 1960, before the Super Bowl came to be, and they had to overcome that season, losing their quarterback, losing a lot of players, like their offensive linemen, a few of their safeties went down, and even going to the playoffs, teams were not. Our pundits were like saying they didn't give the Eagles a chance. I mean, heck, they were home underdogs against the Falcons and the Vikings. And somehow, some way, what Jason Kelsey said, hungry dogs run faster. And sure enough, they ran faster and throughout that playoff run because they came on top. So it's the game that mattered most, being the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So with that being said, what was Kobe Bryant's reaction like? Well, let's take a look.
Oh my no. Oh, thank God. Oh my God. Yes, we won. We won Super Bowl. That's it. We won Super Bowl. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yes. Yes. Oh my God. Oh my God.
So, I mean, you can't. That's a reaction for forever and ever. I mean, you just can't.
I mean, I remember when Georgia won their first national championship after 41 years. And my dad, much like my mom, brainwashed me not into liking North Carolina, but liking University of Georgia football program. And I spent a lot of Saturdays with my dad watching Georgia football, 3:30 on CBS. And so when Kylie Ringo caught that interception to seal the fate for Georgia to win their first national championship since 1981, since that January, I FaceTimed my dad and we're screaming and shouting, and it was an emotional moment because that hadn't happened except for once in my dad's lifetime. And at that point, and that never happened in my lifetime, saw Carolina win 3 national championships in men's basketball, but at the same time, though, for a program to end a drought, it's a special kind of feeling, a special kind of joy to have when it happens.
Yep, and we got and Amir and I got to see 2 national championships won by Carolina. You have the upper hand on one of those, unfortunately, Alex. But maybe one of these days, North Carolina will be on top once again. But with Kobe Bryant, I mean, I bet this is something that he's been looking for a long, long time, right, Amir?
Oh, definitely. And you bring up the Charles Championship, which occurred, year before that. 'Cause I'd never seen any of my teams win a championship in real time. So maybe Alabama, but I knew they were going to win those. But for Tar Heels, after they lost at the buzzer the year before that, to come back and win on the next year, I just said it was, it brought great momentum to Carolina sports. They're going through a very down period at that point once again with the Panthers losing, Hornets losing, and I know Duke was going through a rough time as well. And then to finally see my team win one, it just felt great. It's like, hey, it's one thing to see to win it, to see it in real time. You get to experience it with what the fans are feeling like. It just feels, it's, how do I put it? It's what Kobe said. It just feels relieving. It's like you get to witness it. And,
I mean, depending on what color shirt though you wear, Amir, and depending on what alumni association calls you, seeing Duke being a down period isn't necessarily a bad thing. So I know there's a lot of folks who spent time in Raleigh and Chapel Hill who don't mind seeing Duke having some down years.
Well, that's true, but I do know I haven't got to know what was going on in Carolina, not just sports, but in general with with several things going on. Just we needed something to cheer about, and that was something when the Tar Heels won. It just felt great, not just for sports, but just the Carolina area in general, given what's going on in the last few years with Stu, Dean, the Panthers, one of the bills that passed. It's just one of that. When you win a championship, it just brings a lot of positivity, not only to the people who play there, but also people associated with that area.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, as I try to exit out this, so with that, this was the aftermath of the Super Bowl. So as you can see, Nick Cole holds up the championship trophy, and more celebration going on. And, and with the Patriots side of things, they don't get the force the Lombardi Trophy, and Bill Belichick, soon to be Tar Heel head coach, is disappointed along with Brady. So with that, what are you guys' thoughts when you see these images up on screen?
To me, it just seems like, the fun of sports from an outsider's perspective. You work hard all season, work hard in the preseason, work hard in those early games, and it all leads up to only a select number of teams having a chance to win the championship. And now that number goes down and down, down until you're eventually at 2. And when you're holding that trophy, it makes all that work worth it. When you're walking off the field and the confetti behind you is not for you, it feels like your heart's ripped out of you. I mean, that's the fun of sports. That's why people enjoy things like this. That's why people watch sports. It's why we enjoy sports. It's the reason sports exist. It gives us a chance to be competitive and also to celebrate the highest of highs and try our best to avoid the lowest of lows.
And definitely, because again, the playoffs for the NFL just started yesterday, so 2 teams are advancing, 2 are going home. That being Baltimore and Houston going on, and LA Chargers and the Steelers their season's over. But yeah, like we said, when Kobe saw his hometown team win, he was excited. He got to see he's been both ends of it too, winning championships and then losing it. And it's just, it's a, that's the joys and the highs and lows of sports. When a team wins, it feels great, but when they lose, it's deflating. So the Eagles have experienced the highs. The positive was like being a sports fan, or in their case, players and coaches who were the Patriots experienced the dejection part, saying like we came that close and couldn't finish the deal.
Mhm.
So Kobe Bryant was able to uh, watch his team get a victory and enjoy his retired life as a Laker until January 26th rolls around, and it turned out breaking news. Kobe Bryant was involved in a helicopter crash along with his daughter, Gianna Bryant, going to a basketball camp of some sort in Southern California. And he was pronounced dead on the scene along with 6 or 7 others. And that was pretty much that with Kobe Bryant and his daughter.
Mhm. I remember where I was when I heard this news. My sister had gotten married that weekend in Chapel Hill, the Chapel Hill area. And I was driving back from Chapel Hill to Charleston, West Virginia, where I lived at the time. And I pulled over to take, snack break, bathroom break, gas break, whatever you want to call it, kind of at the halfway point on Interstate 77 when Interstate 77 and Interstate 81 merge. And I saw a text from my brother that said, "Hey, Kobe Bryant died." And I immediately went straight social media, tried to figure out as much as I could, because Kobe Bryant was just that much of a monumental figure where, you know, him dying was just not in the cards. No one saw it coming. It was an incredible tragedy, what happened. And as what we saw afterwards, I mean, everyone across the sporting world was shook up by what happened.
Yeah. And I bring up the sporting world because I was watching a basketball game and I flipped over to the ABC for the Pro Bowl. And right as I turned the channel, the announcer, what's his name, for ABC at the time, name escapes me, says, breaking for the news of the death of Kobe Bryant. I'm like, wait, Kobe? It just didn't make sense because the night before that, he just congratulated LeBron James on surpassing him for I think it was points scored or something like that. And then all of a sudden they're reporting on his death. I'm like, what happened? And then they cut to ABC News and they tell him he was in a plane crash. And then since it's such a journalism, there was so much like misinformation saying like this guy was on the plane, he was on the plane, the whole family was on the plane. It's just a lot of like misinformation, mixed emotions, and it's just of course things went to the dust, so we found out who was actually on the plane. But it was just a strange feeling. It's just like he was just alive just 2 hours ago. Now he's gone.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it turned out to be 9 people. 9 people were on board of that helicopter crash who died, and just to name a few of those who passed away, his John Altobelli and his wife Carrie, his daughter Alyssa, Sarah Chester, Peyton basketball daughter Peyton, basketball coach Christina Monser. I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing her name, and the pilot Aura Lobanen, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. If so, those are the people that were tragically killed in the helicopter crash. This is at the And for me, when it comes to the sport, when I found out the news that Kobe and those passengers were killed, I was watching a racing event called the Rolex 24 at Daytona. It was a 24-hour race, and I remember staying up maybe 14, 15 hours straight watching that event, and it was probably 9, 10, 11, or 11 a.m. or 11:30 actually. I woke up from a nap, and then I get a text message from one of my friends who goes to Chapel Hill. He was saying, "Holy bleep, Kobe Bryant died," and I was like, "Wait, what?" And then I remember rushing upstairs, and then I woke up my brother. I was like, "Oh, turn on the TV, turn on the TV." And then when I saw it on the television upstairs in the other room, I was like, shaking my head. I was like, yeah, I was in disbelief, just like many others were at that time.
Mhm.
Pretty tragic.
Yeah, because it just he just LeBron sent his no, he sent his congratulations to LeBron the night before, and then it just I just like, and then that happened. It was just so like you say, his time was like he was only what 5 years removed from the NBA. He was 45 at the time. It just didn't make sense.
Mhm.
I think it was 43. I think it was 43. So let me do a quick Google search. Let's see, doing 42, 41. He was 41 when he passed away.
Oh, 41. Okay, so, but yeah, it was. But one thing I also remember what the guy from ABC said it best. He said, we grew up with Kobe, and I brought up here in the presentation when I first got into sports, he was the first one of the big names that I heard about or saw on the TV, and it's just that's when I knew it was like, man, this is really big. 'Cause, again, I grew up watching him. I saw him play. The Lakers were on the big teams at the time. And I got into sports. His team made the finals, and that was 2008. So I was like 12 years earlier. It's just it was really
Yeah.
a tough pill to swallow, and because again, you just didn't see it coming.
Oh, and we both got to see his fourth and fifth championships being being uh being held by Los Angeles as well with the Magic and with the team being Orlando Magic and Boston Celtics were the teams that the Lakers beat during that time. So we got to see a couple championships by Kobe Bryant.
Mhm.
And I don't know about you, Alex. I don't know how many you've seen that with Kobe Bryant of his championship
I
dynasty.
I can't tell you who they beat in their three-peat when Phil Jackson was coach during his first tenure with the Lakers. But at the same time, though, I mean, they just had so many recognizable figures that were household names, even for people who didn't watch basketball at the time. People like Shaquille O'Neal, people like Kobe Bryant, Phil Jackson. Rick Fox was a name in my household because my mom went to Carolina and knew Rick Fox from his time in Carolina. But that was just a special era of sports, those late 90s, early 2000 years.
Mhm. Most definitely, and um, for Amir and I, we got to see the late 2000s with the Bobcats on the scene. Girls trying to grow, and the Lakers and Boston Celtics and Cavaliers as well. When it comes to the NBA, dominating the scene, and also San Antonio with Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and
Mhm.
Manu Ginobili. So those teams pretty much dominated the league, and now you got today. You got Denver. You still got LA, but they're still trying to put some pieces together over there with LeBron now. Who
Yeah.
else? Oh, Oklahoma City with Jake Gilgeous Alexander.
The
And those
Cavs are doing great right now.
the Cavs. Mhm. So they might hoist something up later in Cleveland later down the road. So we'll see. But with Kobe Bryant, are definitely an iconic basketball name, player, and figure. And throughout.
Yeah, and then getting back to that, of course, I was watching the Pro Bowl, and of course, right as I changed that channel, they announced his death, or that's when I learned of his death. But then during the game, then I had a moment of silence, like during the game. It was like I think early first quarter when news reached Orlando, and some of the players they paid tribute to him by dunking over the goalpost for the basketball celebrations, and then a week later for the Super Bowl, they stood at the 24 and 8 yard lines and placed in purple and gold in memory of Kobe and Saquon Barkley, who's with the Giants at the time, now with the Eagles. Enough, he wore a LA Lakers jacket to the NFL honors the night before, and they also honored him in that segment at the memorial segment. And Peyton Manning talked about that his pep talk to the Eagles night the night before they won their Super Bowl against the Patriots, and which is why when we started this channel, I wanted to discuss Dax. And he was and we know him for the NBA, but he also had ties to the Philadelphia area, and he was rooting for the Eagles and was interacting with Peyton Manning and a few other big names at that time, and just it just shows what impact he had on not just the NBA but also the NFL, just like Stuart Scott.
Mhm.
So with that being said, that'll be the end of my presentation. So, to wrap this up pretty quickly, what are Amir, you hit the nail on the head. When it comes to the differences between the two, because I like to ask that question to you, and so with that, I got really got nothing else when it comes to that. You hit the nail on the head, and I like that a lot. So, folks, that'll be the end of this episode of Double Header. If you like what you see, feel free to give us a like, subscribe down below for more. If you like what you see, and if you'd like to follow us on Spotify at Doubleheader97, feel free. Follow us on Instagram at Doubleheader97, and follow our Wix websites for more information from Amir and I and Alex. Where can people find you if you want to hear more information about you?
Yeah, so I'm on Blue Sky. If you search Alex House Thomas, I'm right there. And I have a podcast talking about national politics and how it affects people back home called Arkies in the Beltway for the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. So feel free, you can listen to it on YouTube, you can listen to it on Spotify. I believe if you have enough string and 2 tin cans, you can just throw it to the nation's capital and you can just listen to it that way too. But thank you guys for having me on. Thank you for allowing me to talk a little bit about my interest in sports, a little bit about Stuart Scott and Kobe's impact on sports. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Definitely, man.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate you having you on, and thank you for the insight. And feel free to come back on anytime.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys again.
You're welcome. And I knew when I came up with this episode, I said, I know who we got to have on that said, had to be you. And sure enough, I'm glad we made it come to fruition.
Absolutely.
Well, folks, with that being said, my name is Keenan Costain. He is Amir Daniels, and he is Alex Thomas. And we'll catch you guys next time. Bye, folks. Have a good one.
Yep, turn that pillow over to the cool side, folks.